My dear brothers and sisters in the risen Lord, fifth week of Easter, Monday, we are shaped and fashioned by what we love, Kote. Once there lived two brothers. The elder one was married and had two children, and the younger one was a bachelor. They both owned a farm together, and any produce they reaped, they shared equally between themselves. One day, after harvest of grains, the elder brother had some qualms regarding the sharing. He thus thought to himself, "This is not fair. My brother is not married and he gets half the produce of the farm. Here I am with a wife and two kids. So I have all the security I need for my old age. But who will care for my brother in his old age? He needs to save much more than what he saves at present." That night, he carried a few sacks of grains from his granary and deposited them into his brother's granary. The bachelor brother too thought this way. This is not simply fair. My brother has a wife and children, and he only gets half the produce of the harvest. I have no dependents, and I don't need so much crumbs. It is just that my brother receives more than half of the produce. That night, he carried a few sacks of grains from his granary and deposited them into his brother's granary. One day, when they got out of their beds at the same time, they ran into each other, each carrying a sack of grains on his back. Many years later, after their death, the story leaked out. So when the people wanted to build a temple in the village, they could never choose a holier place than the spot where the two brothers met at night carrying sacks of grains on their backs. In today's gospel, as Jesus began to give his parting message to his disciples, he promised them that they would be loved by him and by his Father if they kept his commandments. Let's note. 1. Those who keep Jesus' commands love him. Love to Christ will be shown by all those who keep his commandments. Not only the disciples who had seen him, but even those myriads of disciples who would come to believe in Jesus because of the preaching of his 12 disciples could show their love of Christ by keeping his commandments. We as Christians will honor Christ not only by our knowledge about him, but also more importantly by obeying his commandments. We would show our love to Christ not merely by reading the Bible, but by obeying his commandments. When somebody boasted and said that he had gone through the Bible 50 times, his friends remarked sarcastically, "How many times has the Bible gone through you?" When we know the commandments of the Lord and keep them in our hearts, then we graduate from being the knowers of Jesus into becoming lovers of Jesus. Those Christians who do their duties would be known as lovers of God. It is not knowledge that makes us true disciples of Christ, but obedience to his commandments. Second, God loves those who obey him. God had loved us even before we come to love him. Our love of God is only a reciprocation of his love. St. Paul said, God proved his love for us in that while we still were sinners, Christ died for us. Romans chapter 5, verse 8. When we show our love to God, but keeping his commandments, God richly returns our love. When we love Christ, the Father would love us, and Christ will also love us. When we love Christ, will comfort us by his manifold revelation. He will reveal more of himself to us. He will reveal more of himself to us. May God bless you all. Amen.